So I'm here for our shared hope for the world. I'm here on behalf of the beautiful places like Cape Cod, like the 70-acre pond I live on, where I saw a bald eagle yesterday, a blue heron. I hear frogs. I live in Air, Massachusetts. I'm here for the snow to ski on. I know, I love winter. I'm here for the women and girls in developing countries who are tied to the washtub, hand washing, cooking on a wood stove or just an open wood fire, and traveling to the pump or the river for water. I'm here for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and the next 7 generations. I'm also here to present a counter-narrative on climate and energy, because I'm a progressive. Like I just said to Sean, these are my people. We're progressives. That means we go to the next best idea. We're open, we listen. So back in 1994, my sister-in-law and her husband, Jim and Nancy, they bought 11 acres in New York State, Western New York, near Cuca Lake, to go off the grid. Yes, that was 30 years ago. Where'd 30 years go, you know? With determination, they paid no electricity bills for 30 years. They had propane for their stove and their hot water. Propane is a form of methane, a highly polluting fossil fuel that leaks frequently and disastrously. They had a gas generator, and batteries provided backup on the many bad weather days. 3 cords of wood heated the house in winter. Wood and coal are the most polluting the most polluting fuels to burn. Their 2 kids survive without an automatic dishwasher, a toaster, a clothes dryer, or a hair dryer. These appliances demand a strong, reliable flow of electricity. An answering machine takes a small trickle of electricity. If we wanted to call them, we had to catch them when they were home. They were so sensitive. They watched every kilowatt hour. The sun in Western New York managed to run the lights, the fridge, the washing machine, and TV. I think they hung dry their clothes. They watched TV along with every single kilowatt hour for 14 years until Nancy wanted a hot tub. So for $7,000, that was in 2008 money, they hooked up down their long driveway to the New York State electrical grid. The juice that powers our American lifestyle, our health, our good health, hooked up another of Nancy's favorite appliances, a dishwasher. You should see her pat her dishwasher that she has now, in addition to the hot tub. Like most of us here, like most UUs, and UU wannabes like Sean. He's a UU and doesn't know it. They want to do the right thing, and yet they still had to require and rely on fossil fuels for hot water, cooking, and the backup generator. At 3 cords of wood every winter, wind and solar just couldn't do it. And the batteries people talk about, they just don't exist. And if they did, well, I'll stop. Come to the talk back afterward, ask more questions. There's so many details about this I've learned in the last 2 years. This is the most important. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. That quote comes from Thomas Sowell. He's an associate of Clarence Thomas, but it's true. Let's talk trade-offs. Church and newspapers are to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I hope you're ready for a little discomfort. And like you, I used to believe in wind and solar farms, and I despaired about climate change until a fellow UU offered comfort when he spoke on how nuclear power can quickly reduce CO2 emissions while safely, safely, contain 100% of the byproducts. He walked us through the data, and all science is based on data, of the greenwashed promises of wind and solar farms. He transformed me into a nuclear Mormon, or should I say a nuclear evangelist? Can UUs be evangelists? So there are three big challenges of an electrical grid that relies on wind and solar. Wind and solar are erratic. They depend on the weather. Anybody here grow up on a farm? You know how erratic that weather can be. And our electric grids are the most complex machines and systems ever built. And you have to have in-the-moment supplies of just the right amount of juice to keep the lights on. Wind and solar farms suffer droughts. Regularly, they need what's called a peaker plant, a gas, fossil fuel, methane, to turn on when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. If you upset the fragile grid, like happened in Texas in Winter Storm Uri in 2021, 400 people died. We need our constant flow of electricity. The best wind farm produces electricity 40 to 50% of the time. Massachusetts solar electricity produces electricity 16% of the time. Compare that to nuclear, which generates a base load electricity 90% of the time in all weather. Right, the next big problem is, where are we going to get all of the land, the massive amount of land required for wind and solar farms? Are we going to go offshore and let them break up and come washed up on the beach? They wear out in 20 to 30 years. They have to be replaced and buried in landfills. These aspects are never included in the cost estimates of wind and solar, the predictions. All right, here's one of my favorite examples of why I am here for the Earth. So imagine that's 1 square mile right here. That's how much it takes to put a nuclear plant, 1 square mile of land, and it can produce a gigawatt of electricity. That means it's enough for 750,000 homes. 1 square mile of land. To do the same with solar, you need 75 square miles of land. It's square miles. To do the same with wind, you need the whole chart. You need more than 300 square miles of land to produce that same amount of electricity nuclear can do on 1 square mile. There's also the harm to the wildlife. The eagles that fly in, the whales. There's different data on the whales and the eagles, and depends on who's collecting the information. Number 3, don't send a kid to do an adult's job. The electricity from wind and solar, they are not enough to make steel, to desalinate water, to make concrete, to recycle plastics, or this is the big one, they're not strong enough to fuel a data center. A data center is a nice way to put data massive warehouses. These things that house all of our apps on our phone and artificial intelligence, not that any of us are using artificial intelligence yet. Amazon, Microsoft, except for Sean. Sean uses artificial intelligence. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Nucor, it's a steel company. They are investigating small nuclear reactors called SMRs to meet their humongous electricity needs. Tech companies rely on science. Science is based on data. If the tech companies calculate that a wind or solar farm with battery backup is cheaper and better, they would not be pursuing small nuclear reactors for their ginormous computers. And we're at the tip of the iceberg for the AI revolution, which is predicted to require, for example, Right now, you do an 11-second Google search. Okay, how to make kombucha. 11 seconds, it's like turning on a 100-watt light bulb. Now, I want to send an email to my sister on how to make kombucha from scratch, different recipes. That artificial intelligence search will be like turning on an 800-watt light bulb. So it's just huge consumers of electricity. So we are people of the book. I noticed that in your bathroom downstairs. You had a bunch of books in your bathroom. But we believe in science. We are people of data and science. And then there's the UU interdependent web of life that we hold dear. So hang on to your pew when a UU whips out the principles and the shared values. So one of the things that really influenced me in learning more about nuclear was the plight of the world electricity, how our demand is only growing, and how we have 8 billion people on the planet. Nearly 1 billion do not have access to electricity. And again, the women and girls are tasked with hand washing, with getting water from the pump or river if it's accessible, sometimes walking miles for the water and the firewood. When's the last time you made dinner over an open fire? And so once women and girls are freed from that, and they have electricity, reliable electricity, even miserable electricity, they can get an education. They can learn to read, which is the greatest freedom of all, to question, to learn more. They could start a business. They could get out of a difficult relationship. They could teach their children to read. They could run for office. They could learn about birth control and be empowered enough to use it when we're predicted to go to 10 billion people. So clean, reliable energy, it's not only good for the planet, it's good for families, and especially women and girls. So I really appreciate the invitation to be here. When I advocated for criminal legal reform for 7 years, lots of UU congregations in Massachusetts welcomed me and people who were formerly incarcerated to speak. But nuclear is the N-word. I know, thank you for laughing. Because if we don't laugh at this, we're going to just walk out of here crying. It's the new N-word because it challenges the meta-narrative of the green miracle of wind and solar. We UUs do not believe in miracles. We believe in science. Maybe some of you marched against Seabrook back in the day? Yeah. I did. Yeah. Right now, Seabrook is providing 20% of our base load electricity. Along with Millstone, Connecticut, there's a nuclear plant there. 20% right now is coming from Seabrook and Millstone. The fourth principle calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Now in the new values, it's called pluralism and transformation. Your church, I give you a gold star. You're the third church in Massachusetts in 18 months to accept our offer to come talk about something that challenges the meta-narrative. I hope you're not going to chase me and Sean out of town. We're both plugged in right over there at the hybrid station, at the electric car. So I bet some of your brains are screaming, what about the waste? What about proliferation? What about Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima? I'll do my best to be brief on the answers. You have to read that book, or this one. This is even more dense with smaller print. An older book. This is so easy to read. It was written by a skeptical journalist who really was surprised at the information in it. It's called Power to Save the World, The Truth About Nuclear Energy by Gwyneth Cravens. Because the entertainment and news media distorts the information terribly, and they focus on and exaggerate the data. So becoming a nuclear evangelist is like learning to play the piano or the harp like our musician has played today. It's really beautiful. Thank you for the music. You start simply, and then you drill down on the complexities, which Sean has done. His roots run deep on this. So if you have some technical questions, we'll be here to talk about them. So the waste. It's a mushroom cloud in everybody's mind. So the amount of electricity for my whole life, from nuclear power, from uranium, could be found in this little ball from a game. And the waste, the most hazardous waste, which is only about 5% of the byproducts, could fit a mug a little bit larger than this, 12 ounces. Whereas my waste right now from burning fossil fuels, it would fill a long trainload of pollution, of CO2 emissions. So the hottest waste has to be handled carefully for only 600 years. All of the hottest nuclear waste produced in America, I don't know, is it the world? Since the dawn of the nuclear age in the 1950s, which Eisenhower embraced, it could fit into a Walmart superstore. That's how little there is. And we have the technology to handle the waste. What's lacking is the political will. Number two, the bombs. It's difficult, if not impossible, to build a nuclear bomb from what you get at a nuclear power plant. First of all, it's impossible to gain admission. They won't even let us come tour them. We're just volunteers. And it's kind of like a teenager. If a teenager's going to do something bad, they do it, right? They're going to get away with it. If a country wants to build nuclear power, they don't need a nuclear power plant to do it. It's almost impossible for a bad actor to break into a nuclear plant. And an airplane, it's basically an empty tin can. It would collapse. It would bounce off the containment structure. It's so well contained, we would never have a Palestine, Ohio. They run locomotives into the containers that store the byproducts. All right, the third one, the three big accidents. This is where I found the research and the data the most compelling. Today's nuclear plants are walk-away safe. The artificial intelligence will say to the operators, leave the building, we will handle it. Because, of course, accidents are caused by humans. The best result of 3 Mile Island was that nuclear plants started to talk to each other, because the same valve that stuck at 3 Mile Island and caused the workers to shut down the cooling system, it had stuck at another nuclear plant. But there was inadequate training and communication. Because do we have any airline pilots here? Airline pilots study and talk about each other's accidents and mistakes to learn more. So that totally changed the industry. And despite the hasty evacuation and the movie that followed, nobody got any radiation poisoning at 3 Mile Island. The containment structure worked while everyone evacuated in a panic, and it just totally changed our meta-narrative. Speaking of containment structures, the Russians built Chernobyl without a containment structure. It's hard to find the best analogy. Imagine driving your car today without the body, the metal body. No nuclear plant has ever been built since then or ever without it. And the accident happened during a safety drill, and then staff changed, and it went from bad to worse. About 30 to 40 of the first responders did die. The intensive radiation that comes from an accident, it's the worst in the first 30 days. There's more to say about both Chernobyl and Fukushima. So Fukushima had a panicked evacuation also. More than 1,000 people died, not from radiation. It was the panicked evacuation. Radiation might have killed one worker. Now, this is the most interesting part, I think. 10 kilometers up the coast, there was another nuclear power plant. Nothing happened. They lost power for a little bit, but their backup generator was above sea level. So it continued to cool the plant, whereas at Fukushima, Daiichi, the backup generator was underwater. Again, human error design. So I hope you dig a little deeper into nuclear power for the sake of the places we hold dear, like Cape Cod, for the sake of the billion families in developing countries and the women and children, and of course for the next 7 generations. But I have hope in the big tech companies. They have far more influence than you and I. They will lead the way. I feel really encouraged because of their recognizing. And Bill Gates, you've heard about his plant in Wyoming, which he is bankrolling. The New York Times podcast had a great description, a great update of nuclear power this week, if you have podcasts. Our website also has a bunch of resources, podcasts, movies, books. It's Eco-Nuclear Solutions. So nuclear power wins, hands down, as the most powerful, reliable, and best value. Even though it's the N-word, we use, think about it. We advocated to end slavery. We embrace ideas like women's rights, trans rights, gay rights. We can embrace, we can be progressive and think differently about nuclear. And talk to your friends about it, talk to your legislators about it. So just remember, I hope you found information, you've been disturbed and comforted, because there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So we extinguish it now.